So there I am. So in this video, I want to talk about phrases. Phrases kind of exist in that very squishy gray area between words, which are words, and clauses, which have subject and verb. So you've got words and then clauses, right? Clearly identifiable things there. Nailed it. But within that, you've got this very, because some phrases are closer to the word end and some phrases are closer to the clause end, right? Some phrases even have subjects. Like there's one type of phrase that even has a subject, very much like the clause. Um, Now, the as a rule, though, right? Um, what what makes a phrase is that you take a word and you give the word an object, like let's say it's a verb or a verbal, you give it an object, or if it's just any kind of word and you modify it in some way, then you've got a phrase. However, that and some textbooks and some teachers kind of approach it that way, and that's why, like, your subject is kind of your noun phrase and then your predicate is your verb phrase. But I tend to steer away from that, with you guys, so that we can kind of focus on this stuff, because honestly those markings become gratuitous, really. So what we're going to look at in this video are um, positive phrases, prepositional phrases, verbal phrases. Okay. And yeah, that, right? Okay. Um, Now, positives are, by definition, it just means, like, something next to, right? And a positive are just like restatements of the nouns. Okay. You see here, I've got at the bottom, I saw the comedian Daniel Tosh at the airport. Okay. Now, comedian is I saw the comedian. That's the direct object there. Daniel Tosh is also the direct object, right? It's a restatement of that noun that's kind of right next to that noun. Okay, now you'll notice I don't have any commas around it, because if I just said I saw the comedian, you don't know who I'm talking about, right? But I say Daniel Tosh, now you know who I'm talking about. So those commas need to be out of there because Daniel Tosh is necessary information. Okay. Now let's say that I say something like the THS football teams, both varsity and JV, won this week. Now, when I say the THS football teams, I say it plural like that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So the addition of both varsity and JV, that's unnecessary, right? I'm just stating it for clarity's sake or whatever. So because that's unnecessary information, that's parenthetical information, we separate it with commas. Okay. So a positive's there, separated with commas. Um, so that's it. Now look, just like before, a positive is, that restatement of the noun, and honestly, it serves the exact same grammatical function of, right? Daniel Tosh, direct object, just like comedian, direct object. Both, you've got varsity and JV there. Both of those, that's subject, right? So if I were parsing this, THS football teams, okay, teams, subject, right? And then varsity and JV also subject. What I do when I parse is I separate that appositive with big old vertical lines, okay, because it's essentially just a restatement of, so as not to confuse things, I just isolate that appositive with vertical lines, okay? All right. Um, Good. Okay. And then what would take the appositive to an appositive phrase is if I had some modifiers, right? So let's say I saw the comedian Daniel Tosh at the airport. Uh, I saw the comedian, the very funny Daniel Tosh at the airport. Then that would be an appositive phrase because I've got modifiers for Daniel Tosh, then the appositive. Okay. Um, Now, prepositional phrases, right? Prepositions, because they're connectives, right? They connect things just like conjunctions do. They have to have something to connect. They always take an object. Because prepositions always take an object, they're always going to come in phrases. Okay. So These guys can act adverbially, adjectively, never like a noun. Okay. I run in the park. In the park tells me where I run. It is on the smaller desk, right? On the smaller desk tells me where it is. Okay. And remember in this case, because prepositional phrases, although they can act adjectively, they can act as predicate adjectives. Is then is an intransitive verb. Like, remember the rule one thing that helps anyway is if you can replace the linking verb with exist and it still makes sense, then you have an intransitive verb. It exists on the smaller desk. So it's not linking there. Okay. And then he took the one on top, right? On top tells me which one he took, right? So, it's acting as an adjective for one there. Okay. And we can see the parsings there. There we go. Look at that. Okay. All right. Now, as far as verbals go, okay, verbals, again, if they take an object or they have a modifier, then the verbal becomes a verbal phrase. So the gerund becomes a gerund phrase, the participle becomes a participial phrase, infinitive becomes an infinitive phrase. Same thing. Gerund phrases always act like nouns. Okay. Participial phrases always act like adjectives, and then the infinitive phrases can act like nouns, adjectives, or adverbs. Okay. Now, here's the funny thing, though, right? Is if it wasn't difficult enough, you've got when you see infinitive phrases. I told you, right, that sometimes they have a subject. Okay, and that subject is always going to be in the oblique case, right? So it won't be he, it'll be him. Okay, like here, I let him drink your milk, right? Um, Now, him is who's doing the drinking. So if you were parsing this, you would isolate him drink your milk. You would mark him as the subject, drink as the infinitive transitive, right? And then you would have milk as the direct object, and then your modifies milk. Now, in this case, right, it's an infinitive phrase. We don't see the two. Okay. Sometimes that happens. I let him drink your milk. Okay. No two. If I simply replaced let with allowed, I allowed him to drink your milk, then it shows up. Okay. It's just the way the language is used. Okay. So sometimes the two is there, sometimes not. Right. Okay. And here, okay, we see some of these phrases used. Okay. And then this is how they are parsed there. Okay. You'll notice there, Cole is annoyed by Tem asking so many questions. Okay. Um, that's a very cool, I don't know. Are you guys even, okay. I can make it big on my screen, but I guess you guys, okay, maybe you see it. Maybe you see it. All right. So look here. This is important. Okay. Because you've got two different, right? Cole is annoyed by Tem asking so many questions, and Cole is annoyed by Tem's asking so many questions, right? Look, it depends on what the focus is on, right? Okay, so what is Cole annoyed by? If he's annoyed by Tem, who happens to be asking so many questions, okay, you'd parse it like the first one, right? Asking so many questions becomes a participial phrase acting as an adjective for Tem, right? But if Cole is fine with Tim, generally, it's just the fact that right now he's asking so many questions. Okay. Then you've got the focus then on that, right? So Thames becomes a modifier, an adjective type, right? Owning the asking so many questions. So, all right, let's look at this. So in the first one, the participial phrase asking so many questions modifies Tem, which is the object of the preposition by. In the second case, though, right, Thames modifies asking so many questions, which that then is the object of the preposition by. Okay. First time asking so many questions is a participial phrase. Second time asking so many questions is a gerund phrase. Right. Um, learning this isn't a mechanical thing. It really is about understanding what's being written, what's being conveyed, right? And then kind of parsing it and deconstructing in light of that. Okay. All right. So let's, oh, no, no, go back, go back, go back. There we go. Let's look at this here. Okay. And then we see some of the basic stuff here. She's the one to ask, right? In that case, we wouldn't even, we just mark it just like an adjective, right? Okay. That's a fun one there. Look at this. Chris is running quickly to the cafeteria to get a lot of corn. Okay, Chris loves the corn. What we have there is a prepositional phrase of corn in the infinitive phrase to get a lot of corn, right? Which modifies running. And then you have to the cafeteria modifies running, as does quickly. And all of that is operating within the participial phrase um, that's acting as the predicate adjective for is. All right, then. Good times. Okay. If you have any questions about this, as always, look, these parsings, bring them to class. We'll talk about them. Okay. Anything at all, ask. There we go.